Marvel fans, Eternals has an insane amount of lore and recontextualizing of the MCU, including in its two wild post-credit scenes. In this video, I want to break all of those down, talk about some of the lore from the comic books, and how this will all tie together and help make sense of whether or not Thanos was a robot. Spoiler warning, here we go. What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Vengers Tower as per usual. And man, Eternals was dense. It was packed with a bunch of exposition and lore and recontextualizing of things we have seen throughout the MCU already. And it has those two insane post-credit scenes. Now, here's the deal. I'm actually way less interested in the Blade voice, Mahershala Ali talking to Dane Whitman as he's about to pick up the Ebony Blade. So let's kind of start there, though, because I know some of you guys are really interested in that. Chloe Zhao did go on to confirm that, yes, that is the voice of Mahershala Ali's Blade character. Dane Whitman is going to be taking this epic sword called the Ebony Blade. It's going to grant him with all these abilities and powers, and I think immortality, and it will come at a cost, though, as he slowly becomes more and more unhinged and is corrupted by the sword. That's why Blade is saying, are you sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman? Now, the only real juice here is that it does show they have big plans for Blade. We've heard that this character may well be in the Moon Knight series, and it's pretty obvious that they are building towards a Midnight Suns team up in the MCU, but with it being spoiled in a post-credit scene of a big movie like Eternals, hopefully this means that the Midnight Suns are going to be a big part of the MCU and be fighting some very epic villains and almost like an Avengers level franchise for Marvel eventually. And so there you have it with that. That is really cool and I am excited about it, but it's not really where the juice is at within the Eternals movie and within that post-credit scene, because there's a bunch of this new lore that's working together to sort of recontextualize Thanos specifically, and I want to talk about whether or not he's an organic being. What's the deal with Thanos? Was he a robot? Is his mission to wipe out half of the life in the universe connected to the Celestials? So let's get into it. Now, we learned some stuff about the Celestials within the very beginning of the movie. That text line that's talking about the way that things are. It talks about how Celestials exist before creation and before the six singularities, and so that's really interesting. They existed before the gems or stones, and they existed before creation within the universe, whatever that is. It's later explained that they create stars by pulling cosmic energy from nearby planets, destroying them, but preserving heat and life throughout the universe. That everything in the universe is in this cycle of like living and death, and the Celestials, especially Arishem, he is the creator of a lot of the other Celestials. His crazy level of cosmic power is responsible for a lot of sort of, let's call it the gardening of the universe. We also find out that every million years or so, a new celestial needs to be born, and so an egg is sent to a planet. Arishem, who is a prime Eternal, he puts these seeds using his grand cosmic power into these different planets, and they are harvesting or being incubated by the intelligent, human or sentient life that is on a planet. We find out that the deviants were an original creation of Arishem, and they were there to stop predators from taking out this intelligent life that is really important to fueling a celestial. But he made the deviants organic, and thus they evolved and became predators themselves and started taking out human-like creatures on these different planets, which is bad because you need those creatures to grow the celestial egg. So then he creates the Eternals, which are non-organic beings that will be more or less permanent or immortal, and he has them go to these different planets and fight against the deviants who will be there to stop intelligent life on the planet. We find out that the Eternals are crafted in something called the World Forge, and they are sent to different planets that have a seed come in there, and they're basically just there to help foster life, stop the deviants from destroying human life or sentient life, so that the Celestial can eventually be born. When the emergence of a Celestial happens, it destroys all life on that planet, but then that Celestial will go on to help foster life and foster heat in the universe, creating way, way more life. However, there's an idea I want to kind of keep coming back to here, and this is that I don't know that Arishem is an actual good narrator. I don't know if he's somebody that we can actually trust, and even some of the exposition he gives here might not be true. I mean, he literally lies to most of the Eternals most of the time, and we also know that this process is not perfect. I mean, we see Thena having memories that apparently were wiped before, but she's having memories of Centauri 6 and other planets that they have destroyed. And so it's possible that Arishem and what he does, his crazy cosmic power, and the control that he seemingly has are not all real, that there's gaps there, that there's things that could go wrong. And now I want to jump into the post-credit scene, right? With Eros and Pip the Troll, being teleported into the Eternal ship. And this is fascinating because Pip the Troll introduces Eros, or Star Fox, as the brother of Thanos. And then Eros says, hello, fellow Eternals, saying that he is himself also an Eternal, and he has one of the golden rotating spheres that is used to communicate with the Celestials that a group of Eternals has. He has this thing, but he also seems to be able to use it and read it as he looks at it, and then tells all of the Eternals, your friends are in a lot of trouble. I know where they're at. And then he's going to seemingly help them go to wherever they are at, which is probably with Arishem and the World Forge. And he's going to help them to get the Eternals back. Now, let's talk about Thanos, right? Thanos, is he an Eternal? Is he technically a robot? What is going on with Thanos? Well, there's some hints within that post-credit scene, some things said within the movie, but also some things from the Infinity Saga that may help us understand what's actually happening here. In the comic books, Thanos and Eros are the actual natural-born sons of Alars, okay, who is the son of Chrono. These are Eternals that split after a big Eternal civil war. One of them is put in charge of a new Eternals colony, but in the comics, Kronos, who is again the grandfather of Thanos and Eros, he is a scientist and he's basically trying to make Eternals immortal, okay? He thinks that there's this continuous cosmic regeneration that he thinks the Eternals are capable of. While he is experimenting with this, he ends up disintegrating his own body, but becoming immortal, sort of bound to space and cosmic power itself. And he's able to then help his son, Alars, conceive biological children on the moon of Titan. This is where something interesting from the Infinity Saga comes back into play. When Thanos goes to Vormir to get the Soul Stone, the Red Skull Phantom or Spectre refers to him as Thanos, son of Alars. And so here's where the theory comes into play, right? We've already seen, just because of Star Fox, but also Thena, that things can go wrong. Eternals can make their own choices. They can sort of turn against Arishem and the Celestials in the way that they're bound together. So what if Alars was an Eternal that was sent to maybe Titan to destroy it, or sent somewhere to destroy it, right? Or to foster life until it was destroyed. And this guy ends up experimenting with the celestial DNA, and he ends up discovering like what's going on with the Eternals, and he wants to change himself to be more mortal. And it's even possible that he takes maybe some of the DNA from the deviants and mixes it with the organic or unorganic programming of an Eternal to turn himself into a more mortal being so that he can actually have sons. And so what I'm saying is it's possible that Eros and Thanos are natural born Eternals, Eternals that are not robotic, but organic in some way. I mean, we actually see Cersei turn Sprite into a human. And so it is possible that Alars turned himself into more of a mortal being, or just using the scientific knowledge that he had before, created a scenario in which he could have sons, maybe even using some of the DNA from the deviants. And if you really think about it, that post-credit scene could make that a real possibility, because not only is Eros saying he's an Eternal, but he's obviously not bound by the Celestials, even though he has access to one of their communication devices, and he knows where the friends are being taken. Is it possible he was created in the World Forge by Alars, who went there, or something weird going on like that, which could again explain that Thanos and Eros are Eternals, but non-robotic, non-created Eternals. And if that's true and Alaris was sort of working against the emergence, it's possible that Thanos' whole plan to use the stones to wipe out half the life in the universe was actually to slow down the Celestials gaining power, and maybe he even had another plan on how to stop the Celestials eventually, or break other Eternals free, or something like that. It is actually hinted at a little bit in the movie when Ajax talks about how when Thanos snapped away half the life in the universe, the emergence was delayed. Now, she's not outright saying that that was his plan, but if we just think about the process of his father possibly working against the Celestials, he probably told his sons about what the Celestials were doing, and they might have different tactics as to how to stop the Celestials from destroying all of these innocent lives and creating their eventual whatever they were trying to do. And I really think with Star Fox being there and with the Celestials and their sort of plan or macro ability to manipulate the universe still a major thing that I think we'll explore. I think it's very possible we'll learn more about this. We'll get an explanation for what Alaris actually did, how he was able to actually be the father of these two Eternals that are usually just created. Perhaps there's whole, groups of Eternals that are naturally born and more like the ones we know from the comic books. A lot of different possibilities here, but that's sort of my working theory and a lot of context given from the film itself and that post-credit scene. I strongly believe that we're going to get some of these explanations and that could be what's going on. So basically, all that to say, I don't think Thanos was a robot. And I do think that his plan with the stones was likely connected to knowledge he had about the Celestials and the emergence, which is a pretty cool retcon if you ask me. So I want to know what you guys think of all this crazy lore in the Eternals, the post-credit scenes, and my working theory on how this could all work together. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe to our channel to see more of our content pop up in your recommended feed, and go check out the live streaming channel. Man, you got something you want to add to this theory, something you want to take away from this, come on, bring it into a live streaming channel as a question or a comment, and we'll go over it live together. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.